Millin here from teslataxi.com.au. If you're renting one of our cars and you want to use the auto steer or self-driving, I would always recommend leaving the activation on double pull, so you've got the cruise control option, and I would always recommend having the standard warnings in the autopilot set to assist where they can. So personally I leave the traffic light chime off, but everything else I put as helpful as possible, so assist and early. So we'll just do a quick drive now showing you the eye monitoring. So when you're driving the car, putting it into drive with the right hand stalk, you can use your scroll wheels for your speed controls and volume controls. When we get onto the main road here, this is an 80 km/h road. So we'll set the autopilot on, and this road has some roadworks as well, so we'll see how it reacts to the varying speed limits, and I'll try to let you know what inputs I need to give along the way. So one pull for cruise control and two pulls down on the gear selector here for the self-driving or the self-steering. So we're in an 83 zone at the moment. If we wanted to bring the speed down a little bit, sorry, that's volume on this side, and this is speed on the right hand side, so we can bring it down to 75, or we can just click the speed limit to put it back to whatever offset you've got pre-programmed. I have this one set to 4% over, but obviously if you're in an area where people don't go much over the speed limit, of course you can just have it set to the exact speed limit, or even just manually set the speed to whatever you want it to be. So you'll see quite often it comes up with a notice up here saying to touch the steering wheel, so you should be able to see me do that every time it requires that input from me. There is a eye tracking camera up here which will be keeping an eye on where I'm looking, so if I was using my phone or anything else like that you're not supposed to do, it would give different warnings saying not to do what you're not supposed to do, because obviously at the moment it is a level 2 system, so you are in charge of the car at all times, so it's up to you to make sure that you are always monitoring what the system is actually doing, and if it's about to make the wrong decision you need to take over by just taking control of the wheel and or touching the brakes to stop the cruise control and the self-driving or the self-steering. The blue steering wheel up here shows that you're in self-steering or self-driving mode, and the blue speed here means that the cruise control, adaptive cruise control, is also on. So as we approach this car up ahead of us, if we catch up with him, you'll see the car automatically slow down to keep a safe distance. As mentioned before, you can adjust the speed, the volume on this side and the speed over here on the right hand side. So single clicks like that go up and down 1 kilometre. If you do a full scroll like that, it'll go up and down 5 kilometres at a time, up to the maximum speed that it allows for the road that you're on. And once we get into this 60 zone here, so it's saying 60 ahead, and it reads that as ahead, and then when the actual speed limit changes on this sign, it reads it as a new speed limit, so it puts it back down to 62. So I haven't touched the brakes or any controls for that. And now this is a 40 zone, so that actually didn't register, so of course you do still have to be attentive, as I mentioned, and adjust the speed accordingly. Since there's no traffic around at the moment, I'm just going to let it go here, even though we are supposed to be in a 40 zone, just to see how it handles the speed increases once we go back to the higher speed limit. So this is back to 60 now, and we'll show you the signs if it sees them. Yep, shows you the signs there. And then the next sign up ahead of us there is back to 80, so hopefully this will automatically put itself back up to the full 80 that we were at before the speed limit change. Yep, it's done that now. And the other thing that I wanted to demonstrate on this drive is a lot of people call it one pedal driving, where you use the regen to slow down. I actually prefer to use the Teslas with no pedal driving, so most of the time I just use the actual gear selector to change the speed. So if you pull up on this, which I'll do when we get to a roundabout shortly, that will disengage, the same as just touching the brake, but I usually just use the gear selector there to control that. We are currently in an 80 zone and it's going 83, and the other things to show you just while we're waiting for that roundabout that's coming up ahead is, if you haven't used a Tesla before, you might not know that you can swipe here on the little media center. to look at your power usage. So at the moment, since last charge, this car's used 192 per kilometre, which is about 30% more than usual because it's quite a hot day, so the air conditioning's pumping pretty hard at the moment. And going through a 70, and that reset it down to 70, which is good. Obviously every time that it comes up with the notice up here saying to touch the steering wheel, you need to do that fairly promptly, otherwise it will kick you out of autopilot. And if you get 5, what they call strikeouts, 5 times where it kicks you out of autopilot for not paying attention, it will actually ban the car from using autopilot for a period of time. I think in Australia that's 10 days, but it could be 7 or 14. I haven't actually had that, luckily haven't had that issue yet. So this car will show you the traffic lights that we're going through as we go through them there, and whether they're red or green. However, unless you've got the full self-driving software, it won't actually stop for those red traffic lights. So again, you do need to, as the human driver, take over for any traffic lights that require stopping, or yellow lights, etc. So that one there was a red one saying that was urgently wanting me to touch the steering wheel. And going back to this little control center here, so media is the first page, the power usage is the second page, and then the third page there is your tyre pressure, so you can easily check where your tyre pressure is sitting just through the screen here without going into any menus, which is very handy. The other thing that's quite good to know is when you flick your lights here, it does bring up your lighting controls, so you can change what your headlights are doing, whether it's on auto, high beam, what have you, through that little control center there that pops up when you pull this one back to dip the headlights. And then the other thing on this stalk is the pressing it on the end there brings your windscreen wipers up, and again you can change that from off to auto to on as soon as you activate the windscreen wipers with the little push there, which obviously squirts the water at the same time. So those are the basic controls there with the control center and with the autopilot settings. You'll notice here that as we drive along, the autopilot request for input, when it actually pops up with a message saying to touch the steering wheel, depending on the road, can be quite frequent. Like I've had some roads where you're in city streets going through traffic lights and what have you, where that comes up every 100 to 200 metres. On the freeway, sometimes it's as infrequently as about every kilometre, but again, it just judges essentially the danger of the road and picks its notification times based on how attentive it thinks you need to be on that particular road. So it's slowed down there to 60 and then down to 50. And as we approach this roundabout, I'll just demonstrate that what I call the no pedal driving. So as we're approaching the roundabout, if the car's going faster than you'd like, you can just pull up on this stick, which will disengage the cruise control and the auto steer, and then when you get into the roundabout you can pull down on the stick to put the cruise control back on, so that will keep you flowing through the roundabout without having to touch any of the foot controls, any of the pedals, and then just back onto full self-driving or autopilot once you're back onto the main road. It hasn't gone back up to 60 because we didn't engage it at 60 or above, so we just click that to go back up to the full speed of the road. So it was 60 and now it's just gone up to 80. So that's a bit of a demo on how the self-driving autopilot and FSD systems work here in Australia. This is in January of 2024. We've just had an update which has increased, as I mentioned, the frequency of the eye tracking. So again, if we do go into toy box or something like that, and we take our eyes off the road for any period of time, it will often give a different message. So that's the steering wheel pressure message. Sometimes when you are in this sort of more sort of when you're actually inputting stuff on the screen like this, sometimes it will come up with a different message up here saying to pay attention to the road, like it does with your mobile phone. But that's again just depending on how often it picks up that you are glancing up, and obviously I am glancing up during this video, so it's not actually giving me that inattentive warning. But if I was picking up my phone or doing anything that was actually taking my attention completely off the road, it will have a different message up here to say pay attention to the road, and that will obviously only clear once the car is confident that you are paying attention to what you're supposed to be doing, monitoring the vehicle. TeslaTaxi.com.au if you'd like to rent a Tesla. Thank you.